Hello, everyone. Philip Lee returning with another episode of Civil War Chat. Today is Friday, the 18th of November, 2022. Click on the subscribe button down here in the lower right to subscribe, and also the notification bell in the far upper right to be notified when they are released. And also, if you click on that notification bell, what will happen is that all of the cryptocurrency that has magically disappeared in the last couple of weeks is going to show up in your bank account. We're going to talk today about Ulysses Grant, but before we get into that, I want to point out to you my book, U.S. Grant's Failed Presidency. $22 at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other bookstores, but $26 if you want an autographed copy directly from me. Email me, Phil, P-H-I-L _Lee, L-E-I-G-H me.com. This is a good book for those of you that want to understand how the corruption in his two administrations impacted Southern Reconstruction and also the country at large. He has been, I think, falsely credited with being the most important civil rights president between Abraham Lincoln and Lyndon Johnson. So today's topic is U.S. Grant's East Tennessee fraud. Let me get into that. Along with Dr. Frank Varney, historian Joseph A. Rose has led the disclosures about lies concerning U.S. Grant, often based on lies from the general himself, that his biographers and others have used during the last 40 years to portray Grant as the best Civil War general and the greatest civil rights president between Lincoln and Lyndon Johnson. In his latest example, Rose has released a paper that discredits a Grant hagiographer who applauded Grant for the successful ascent up Missionary Ridge that won the Battle of Chattanooga on November 25th, 1863. Initially, a Union frontal assault by troops of General George Thomas on the Confederate defenders of Missionary Ridge appeared suicidal. Unlike Cemetery Ridge at Gettysburg that was only slightly elevated over the surrounding terrain, Chattanooga's Missionary Ridge is a 300-foot high elevation with a 45-degree slope. Grant intended to take it with a flank attack on the northern end by his favorite subordinate, General William T. Sherman. Unfortunately, Sherman could make no progress at that end. To help him out, Grant decided to distract the rebels by ordering the troops of General George Thomas, who was not a favored subordinate, to advance his soldiers and occupy the Confederate rifle pits at the base of the ridge. Once they did so, it became obvious they were vulnerable to cannon and gunfire from above. If they remained stationary, the general who ordered them there was going to have to take a lot of blame for a disastrous maneuver. That general was undeniably Grant. Fortunately for the Yankees in the rifle pits, maladroit orders for the Southern defenders at the base and top of the ridge, combined with attacks by Union General Joseph Hooker at the south end, belittled by Grant, caused the Confederate position to be weaker than expected. This made an otherwise, quote, impossible Union frontal assault feasible. The Yankees at the foot of the ridge soon realized that their only choices were to retreat the way they came, remain and be killed like target dolls at a state fair, or advance up the steep ridge and drive their tormentors away. Of their own volition, they chose the last course and were surprisingly successful. Shortly after they got to the top, the battle was over, won. Given that the soldiers in the rifle pits and others watching at a distance realized they had been recklessly put in a bad spot, General Grant felt compelled to claim that he had intended for them to advance up the ridge from the beginning. He only wanted, he argued, for them to reorganize at the base of the ridge and then advance up the ridge in columns as opposed to long horizontal lines. Aside from his own after-the-fact claims, nobody heard him say that such was his intent before Thomas's troops succeeded on their own. The hagiographer defending Grant's claim pointed to a journal entry by Quartermaster General Montgomery Meigs that read, quote, Grant said the assault was contrary to his orders. It was not his plan. He meant to form the lines and then prepare and launch columns of assault, close quote. Yet that is poor evidence, since Meigs had merely written down what Grant himself had told Meigs post hoc. Furthermore, Meigs omitted to include that claim by Grant in a report written the next day. Now, the same historian also pointed to a telegram sent by Assistant War Secretary Charles Dana, a battlefield observer, to War Secretary Edwin Stanton that read, quote, the orders were to carry the rifle pits, but when this was accomplished, the unaccountable spirit of the troops bore them bodily up the ridge, close quote. The Grant defender, however, had omitted Dana's sentence immediately preceding this that read, neither Grant nor Thomas intended the assault, close quote. In sum, beyond Grant's own writing, very little evidence exists to refute Dana's unqualified denial of Grant's intent. In contrast, a wealth of other accounts presented by Mr. Rose in his paper collectively contradicts the arguments that Grant meant for the troops to assent. And I'll put a link to Mr. Joe Rose's paper in this post, or at YouTube. It will be in the comments, or it will be just below the video. Okay, that is our show for today, and I want to thank you for watching. I look forward to seeing you next time.